The migrant crisis here in Chicago. I spoke to Christina Passione-Zayas, the city's first deputy chief of staff. She gave me insight on how the crisis is impacting the city and state financially.
We have more people coming in than we actually have transitioning out of shelters.
Already this week, 41 buses have rolled into Chicago. That means there are now 11,000 migrants living in shelters. 4,000 are still sleeping on police station floors and staying at the airports. There have been calls by city officials to close the Inn of Chicago shelter site after reports of criminal behavior, including drug sales and prostitution. Passione-Zayas says it's not shutting down.
We are in a lease. That's the other thing.
This chart shows the number of migrant children now enrolled within the Chicago public schools. 30% of migrants here in Chicago are children. The migrant crisis is straining resources. The state is footing the bill for what they call temporary housing. The state is paying on the high end $9,000 in rental assistance over a 6-month period of time. With that comes help moving in and a starter kit to furnish the apartment.
That rent lasts for 6 months, and ideally people would have started their legal process, secured legal work authorization, and then be able to sustain that apartment.
The city put $4 million towards helping migrants get temporary housing. Right now, there are just a handful of case managers to handle the load to get migrants in temporary rentals.
They have roughly, I want to say in the ballpark of 30 to 40. But we obviously, need to get more. And so that's when we approached the state again for an additional $5 million.
We did reach out to see how many asylum seekers are currently taking advantage of the rental assistance. We haven't heard back from the city on that. Tia Ewing, Fox 32, Chicago.
Am I on? Okay. All right. Well, welcome to Behind Enemy Lines. Terry Newsom and Paul Drabik. Terry is on location, I think, scouting out colleges for for his twins. So I'm filling in. We wanted to show you that clip because Terry and I have been working on this story all year. And I just wanted to point out we were in one instance 6 months ahead of the mainstream media in this story. And then, the last story we did was a couple months ago about this particular issue in Gateway Pundit. So she mentioned $9,000 in rental assistance for each migrant that comes through. And of course, in that story, you heard that they had no estimate for how many people have come into Chicago. But obviously she saw there were busloads and busloads of people. So just to put a pin in this, Jason, if you want to bring up the Gateway Pundit report. One thing I want to mention to everybody is that I think we're living in a paradigm shift in civilization where we're getting rid of the gatekeepers of information. And, this mainstream media narrative is crumbling day by day. Nobody watches it. I mean, thank God that Elon Musk was able to take over Twitter so that we could get, a democratized information flow and that people could share their thoughts without First Amendment rights being infringed upon. So if you go back to that article, scroll down a little, Jason, and that article is from July 29th, by the way. So we were ahead of the mainstream media in reporting on this right there. And so that was from December 2022 to when Terry FOIA'd this in, it was the period between, I think, it was, February 2023 to February 2024. So you see there, Catholic Charities had helped resettle over 15,200 new arrivals between December 2022 and the present. And that doesn't mean that is all that came into Chicago. That's just what Catholic Charities has helped resettle. Obviously, there's going to be some of the burden is shouldered by the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois, things like that. But I mean, think about that, $9,000 across 15,200 individuals. And that's just that time frame, December 22nd through, I think it was February 2024. So if you scroll down a little bit, Jason, and we're going to look at the next graphic. Keep going. Yeah, keep going. There we go, right there. So this is New Life. This is some bullet points from New Life Centers. There, you see their name in the corner. Now, this is an Obama Foundation affiliated nonprofit that was also included in the resettling migrants. You see there, since May of 2023, New Life Centers has resettled 2,180 families comprising of 8,950 individuals working with Catholic Charities. Every family gets a fully furnished apartment. They're now doing apartments per day, 275 per week, 1,100 per month. Where do you think this money comes from? Right? So Illinois raised their taxes by over $1 billion in 2024, and what we found was a majority of that funding was to be earmarked for the migrant crisis. So Illinois taxpayers are paying for that, right? And so Jason, another thing that's happening is the Chicago Teachers Union is, of course, looking for more money. And so if we bring up that Brandon Johnson video, Jason.
I'm wondering if any of the board members can answer this question.
Here. So let me just preface this. This is Brandon Johnson, and he's taking a question from reporters asking about a $300 million high-interest payday loan to fund the demands of his top campaign donor, the Chicago Teachers Union, which he used to be a president of. So go ahead.
I'm wondering if any of the board members can answer this question. Actually, if all of you can, maybe even just a show of your hands. How many of you support taking out a
No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're not doing that.
For a teacher's contract?
If you have a question for the mayor of Chicago, you can ask me a question. What you are not going to do is litigate what the board has the authority to do once they're appointed. You can ask that once they are appointed. No. I'm not going to do it. It's disrespectful. Do you have a question for me?
Okay, I'm sorry. You brought them up here, and it is a
Do you have a question for me? Ask me the question.
Okay.
Ask me if I support, I'm going to help you out.
Yeah.
Ask me the question if I believe that we should invest in our children and make sure we don't lay off brown and black women. Yes. Yes. I'm not going to tolerate cuts. That's what the issue has been in this city. You know what a better question would be? What are you willing to do with your power to ensure that a school district that stuffed black children in Willis wagons, what you should be asking me is, what are you willing to do where you had a district that have laid off black women? You should be asking me, what am I prepared and willing to do to ensure that our children get the education that they deserve? Anything necessary.
I'm going to ask my own questions. Thank you.
All right. So, of course, a great politician is one in which he tells you what questions you're allowed to ask him. This is from the Chicago Tribune. So what is going on is the Chicago Board of Education resigned en masse instead of being a pigeon for Mayor Brandon Johnson. The school board members have the integrity to say, no, I don't want to do your dirty work. Now, when the mayor appoints his new board members and they fire Chicago Public School CEO Pedro Martinez, it will show that the mayor is just an extension of his old employer, the Chicago Teachers Union. So, the mayor is pushing to oust the Chicago Public School CEO while the Chicago Teachers Union is advocating for CPS to take on a short-term, high-interest loan. The burden of managing this debt would inevitably fall on the next CEO. Good luck finding anyone to step into that role under such circumstances. Mayor Brandon Johnson has signaled that living within financial constraints is not a priority. There's no clear leadership on how to manage this debt beyond hoping the state will cover it, which the governor has already declined to do. Okay, so you hear him up there mouthing platitudes about race and so forth, while he, if if anybody listening to this right now isn't aware of the disparity of the south side of Chicago and the west side of Chicago and those African American communities as compared to, you know, the north side of Chicago where the affluent people live and what those schools look like, let me tell you, the people who have been running the school boards, the teachers union, including him when he was president, have not done any favors for the African American kids in those school districts. Okay, there's videos all over Twitter. There's citizen journalists in Chicago that are showing kids videoing themselves, African American kids in these school districts, with guns in school, or kids who look like they're junior high age walking around the neighborhood flashing guns. There's video from during the George Floyd riots in Chicago of kids on the south side shooting guns off in the street. So, you know, don't talk to us about anything necessary. It's all embezzlement. It's all corrupt. This state spends as much money as anybody, and nobody knows where the money goes because nothing gets any better. Crime is up, education standards are down, and the teachers, the public union teachers, are making more and more money because in Illinois, we passed Amendment 1, which has essentially created a fourth branch of government, because what Amendment 1 does is instantiate the right to collectively bargain for public unions into the Illinois Constitution. And they're based on economic welfare and safety. So essentially, it gives license to the public unions in Illinois to collectively bargain using economic welfare and safety as the way to do so. So essentially anything. They could say, we will go on strike if you don't let us put pornography in the schools. Oh, wait, they've already done that. But say they want to start playing pornographic films in your schools. They can say, we're going to negotiate for that. And if you don't give it to us, we don't think that the LGBTQ community of children is going to be safe. So we'll go on strike. And the Democrats who have favored the teachers union, oh, well, okay, well, maybe we need to give them what they want. There's any number of other things that they can negotiate for, including just continuing to raise their salaries and everything else. And guess what? And the kids, none of them benefit because the education standards in Illinois, the test scores, everything continues to go down. Except if you have money. So, and they're not equalizing anything. So it's a travesty. He's a grifter. He's a liar. And he's only seeking to enrich the pockets of the other politicians that he's aligned with. Yeah, we're going to do, let me see. And one other thing to point out, we don't have to put it up there, Jason, but there are some teachers union members who are actually suing for transparency after it has been shown the Chicago Teachers Union has not done an audit for 4 years, which is apparently illegal. And so you can see that, you know, they're obviously hiding their funding and where they're putting it. And then further, you know, I just want to give a little example of the type of person that Mayor Johnson is aligned with. So if you could play that last video, Jason, from that last tweet, and then we'll get into an advertisement and go to our guest.
At the local level in Chicago, part of our Defund CPD campaign, our campaign to get rid of the gang database, and our campaign to stop ShotSpotter. I just want to zero in on this graph on the left. This is maybe the thing that is helping me sleep so well at night right now, knowing that ShotSpotter stock continues to drop. Legally, technically, I'm not allowed to say that, but you know what? It is what it is. I don't care. It's nice to see this contract is a very tangible thing that I think gives people something to I'm thinking about it in comparison to our local defund campaign. Defund is really hard because we were defund CPD by 75%. And the city was whoa, that's a lot. I don't think we can do that. But evidence of like a technology that is like harmful because it's putting Black and brown people at risk. How do we do it? I think it's really important to have like a conversation, like a tangible conversation, or for y'all to walk away with like some tangible like pieces on like how we abolish the carceral state.
Okay, so that was Mayor Brandon Johnson, Senior Advisor on Community Safety. So the point here is these people are communists. They're not hiding the ball. They want to abolish the police. They want to abolish prisons. They wanted to abolish ShotSpotter, which was a technology that helped the Chicago police find where gunshots had taken place. That way they can get there quicker, which was extremely unpopular in Chicago. There was a lot. There are people, the aldermen didn't even agree with Mayor Johnson on this. It didn't make any sense. Everything they do is to increase crime, to increase the chaos, because by creating more problems, communists can then solve them with government and essentially erode your freedoms little by little. So again, that's what we're dealing with here. They want to continue spending more and more and more and more money, because that money comes out of your pocket, the taxpayer pocket. And like the World Economic Forum says, you will own nothing and like it. And that's what communists do. Abolition of private property. They're statists. They're all about the state. So if we could, so, all right. Big event next Thursday, I believe October 17th. The Lincoln Trump dinner. We've got some great guests, including the one we're about to speak to, Chris Adamo, the author of Rules for Defeating Radicals. And we've got some other great guests, including Tana Gertz, a special advisor to President Trump. She came in second place in The Apprentice and is President Trump's go-to lady on the campaign trail in Iowa. We also have Dean White, who is the Republican National Committeeman for Illinois, and people like the police chief in Oak Brook and Stephanie Trussell, a former, I don't believe Stephanie's going to be there, but we got a bunch of other good people, and our competitor, the establishment, the actual Republican Party in Illinois, their event that is going to be right down the street, and their keynote speaker is a Democrat. So you can't make this stuff up, folks. But hey, go to, you know what, Jason, while you're back there, let's bring Chris on. But while you're back there, go to Behind Enemy Lines website, and later on we'll bring up and show how to buy tickets and on our website and so forth. But with that, let's bring in Chris, and we'll get his reaction to some of the stuff we talked about and some other stuff. Hey, Chris, how you doing? Good to talk to you again.
Good to talk to you, Paul. Thank you for having me on. I sat here and I took a whole page full of notes from just what I saw in the last few minutes. I'd like to start out with a comment you just made. You were referring to specifically a different situation where you talked about the fact that they want to increase chaos because this is how communists work. This is how Marxists advance their agenda. They create chaos. Right. And then they ride in as the fix, except the fix involves you forfeiting your freedom, right. Freedom of speech, your freedom to actually hold them accountable for what they do. They're telling you they fix it, and you better believe them, because if you don't, then you're seditious and you're the enemy, and they're going to get you. But let's just take that statement back to the first thing that I saw on there, which had me about to shout at my screen there, was your mayor and what he was discussing about the school system, okay? The whole reason schools are a mess, and this is not just Chicago, this is not just Illinois, this is across America. The whole reason schools are a mess is because they have been overtaken by the left. Mm-hmm. And we want to fix the problem because we want to help these kids to get an education, black, brown, white, anything. We don't care. Get them educated so they can function as adults. And so we keep trying to approach it that way. And we're hopelessly naive when we do that, because they have no intention of fixing it. The number one leverage that they have to demand more money is to say, look, the schools are failing, the kids are not learning anything, their test scores are down, et cetera. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to give that up by actually fixing that, and then they don't have an excuse to ask for more money?
Right, right. Well, it's interesting you mentioned that. I was watching a, and I know we're going to get into this, and I wouldn't call this guy a rhino, but there's a local politician who's running against an incumbent radical leftist in our district. And she had brought up one of her accomplishments was what they call in Illinois a book ban bill. And the reason was because there was parents complaining about some of the pornographic material that they found that their children had access to through the libraries. And so, you know, the narrative they've created is that, oh, Republicans are just a bunch of book banners. Obviously, they're going to draw parallels to the Nazis, you know, in the 20th century and what they did. Well, the problem is, if you look at the actual language in the legislation, it's not actually a book ban bill. What it is it licenses the state to propagandize by saying that no books shall be banned, and that the arbiter of what books are allowed to be in the library is the librarian, the bureaucrat.
The leftist librarian bureaucrat, by the way.
Furthermore, and get this, if books are removed, the library will their funding will be cut off by the state. Now, my argument was that this is a violation of your First Amendment rights because they've made obsolete your right to petition the government for redress
good point.
by saying that the bureaucrat is the arbiter of what material should and should not be included in the library, and the taxpayer now is cut out of the decision-making process. So,
taxation without representation, and again, this is the ultimate goal of all despotism. The number one thing that every despotic movement does, the number one thing, and we need to learn a lesson from this, is they've got to shut down free speech. Now, what does that tell you? The number one threat to their monopoly of power is an informed public. And that's why we have got to do, like you've been doing and Terry's been doing, is we've got to be speaking out on these things. You'll notice that mayor, his obsession from the beginning when the woman spoke up is to shut her up and not let her ask the question as she saw fit, because he can't afford to have that question asked and have people considering it.
Here's the question you should ask. Like, they're going to tell us what questions we should ask.
Yeah, you have free speech as long as you say what I want you to.
Right.
And we need to understand that this is how these people operate. Now, the problem here, and I heard you use the term rhino, and I don't know the details of that situation, but the problem is that we, on the right, need to offer a not only viable, but a starkly contrasting alternative to this leftist agenda. Because when we try to meet them in the middle and meet them halfway and find common ground and things like that, because we don't want to sound too radical. Why? Because they're radical. They're way off on the left. And if we stand right where we should stand for the truth, all of a sudden we're extreme right, according to them. We try to avoid that. We dodge it. What we end up doing is offering an alternative that maybe at best you could say is not as bad as what they do. Well, that's a heck of a campaign slogan. Vote for me. I'm not quite as bad as the opposition.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's the Republican establishment.
Well,
now
it's some of the more subtle stuff that is far more insidious. I mentioned during the opening monologue the Amendment 1. And if we want to get into the rhinos, I'll tell you exactly why the rhinos are so dangerous in Illinois. Our current Senate Minority Leader, who at the time was running unopposed, had advocated for this Amendment 1 and voted for it himself. And I sat in a room where he told us that this was not a hill to die on. And a lot of the people,
nothing is.
A lot of the people who are upset about some of the more egregious and in your face stuff, like the pornography in the schools, the gender ideology stuff being taught to their kids, they don't look at something like this, which gives plenary power to public unions in Illinois, essentially making them a fourth branch of government, who got there through a partnership with the Democrat Party in Illinois, right? Because let's face it, the teachers' unions in Illinois are some of the most powerful in the nation, and they're 99% Democrat, just like most unions are. So this rhino voted for that, and go figure, now he's Senate minority leader, excuse me.
Yeah.
And he told us that this wasn't a hill to die on. I mean, this is not like, this is not only a hill to die on. They've essentially ushered in communism in Illinois.
It's a fundamental defining issue. And what you will see from these people invariably is it's not a hill to die on, because we don't want to fight this fight. And how's his position? Well, he's still sitting there enjoying the perks of office. He gets his place at the table, and a lot of stuff that would, I think, absolutely shock us. And yet, he's going to tell you, well, yeah, we'll do something about the next one. We'll kick the can down the road, do something about the next one. And I could give you an example that on the national scene where during the Obama years, when Obama was president, and we initially took over the House the first term after Obama got in, and there's John Boehner saying, well, we're only 1/2 of 1/3 of the government. So in other words, sorry folks, we can't do anything.
That's a great
so
point, Chris.
Next election we get the Senate. Now we're 2/3. No, we still can't do anything. 2016, we get the presidency. What do they do then? Now, they had taken, I don't know how many votes to repeal Obamacare from the time it was implemented until 2016, and they sent out fundraising letter. We just took our 24th vote to repeal Obamacare, and Obama won't do it. Isn't he horrible, right? We get Trump in there. Suddenly, they're not going to repeal Obamacare. The rhinos are not going to actually upset the apple cart.
Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah,
I remember the big thumbs down from John McCain, like he was some national hero for not repealing something that is actually detrimental to healthcare costs for all, for the middle class and lower classes, because it limits competition. This is simple economics, for God's sakes.
Well, they're expecting a handout, so they don't really care about cost. And so the fact that it does those things like eliminating competition and turning the medical care into an assembly line bureaucracy, where you go in and they're not trying to make you healthy, they're just trying to check off the boxes so they can get their subsidies. They're okay with that. They don't have to deal with that inside the legislature or wherever they're making these decisions, because they have their elite whatever they want to take care of themselves. This mayor is not dealing with the crap, the garbage in the classrooms that's being foisted on these children.
Right.
And his kids, his relatives, whatever, they don't have to deal with it. It's something that you, the commoner, have to endure. And if you complain about it, you're either, again, seditious, or in our case, we're racist because we're white people saying that this black mayor isn't doing things right. And so in the process, what really happens to those innocent black children in these classrooms? They get trampled down, they get robbed of a decent education. And that, frankly, is the plan. He doesn't care what happens to them in life if they go out, if they're actually able to function and prosper, or if they end up as criminals on the streets. He doesn't care about that. He has his own agenda, and it involves a dysfunctional middle class, in which case he, like you said earlier, rides in as the savior. And at that point, what actually happens is so secondary to how much grandstanding he can do off of it.
Well, this is the guy who's allowing, along with the governor, who's allowing thousands upon thousands upon thousands of migrants into our state. And many of those migrants are having to be placed in those schools and taking away resources from some of the kids in those schools, or maybe not taking away resources, but furthering the pool of individuals that'll have to use the resources available at those schools.
Exactly. So, you're not spending as much per pupil.
Right.
And their response is, well, fine, we'll just raise your taxes again. We can spend more per pupil. Are these kids coming in with the goal of making them functional American citizens? Absolutely not. Because if we do that, they might realize that they don't need the Democrats to spoon feed them for the rest of their lives, and we can't have that.
We know what it's about. It's about expanding the welfare state, number one, thereby creating an artificial constituency of future voters that will be Democrats.
A Democrat underclass, exactly.
Right.
And this is how they operate. And again, every one of these movements you describe as leftists, they always claw their way onto that phony moral high ground. And you heard that mayor doing it. He'll do anything for these kids except educate them.
Yeah,
He'll
right.
do anything to get the money, to get the resources, except it goes to everything except actually teaching these kids. Is he going to make sure the libraries are full of educational materials that can make them functioning citizens who understand reading, writing, arithmetic, history, so that they can get out and be successful citizens? No, we're going to tell all the little boys that they need to become little girls so we can poison them with hormones, we can mutilate their genitals, and we can turn them into mental basket cases. The goal being, again, to create as much havoc and chaos as possible.
Yeah, Illinois is a breeding ground for communism these days. And the thing that's frustrating is that we have, rhino politicians that just want to suggest. So, well, I think we've talked about this before. Illinois' problem is they moved so far left. They brought what's known as the Overton window to the left of the political spectrum so much that it's brought the right, the political party, the Republican political party in Illinois, to the left through both corruption and through fear, right? Because they don't
cowardice, absolutely.
They don't want to be painted as bigots, racist, homophobe, that kind of nonsense or whatever. And so, and I'll say that in Illinois, the Democrats, there was one in particular, Mike Madigan, who ran the state for a long time as the Speaker of the House, but they were extremely politically savvy and calculated in creating a supermajority here, and now now they do have control of the Republicans in the state. And
well, the
Mike
Republicans
like
even today give them that control. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
If you have one person speaking the truth in a room full of liars, that's going to make a difference. So what we got to do is silence that. What's that?
Pay to play, right? You guys say what we want you to say, and we'll let you be part of the team.
So I started a commentary I wrote a year or two ago. I said that, and I forget the particular issue, but it was some real outrage that the Democrats had committed, I believe, on the national level. I said within hours, the Republican Party had swung into action. The email accounts across the nation were flooded with fundraising letters. And this is how they respond. It's not a matter of, are we really going to fix things? Oh, well, we can't do that. When Democrats get their people elected, whether it's Illinois or whether it's anywhere else in the country, when they get their people elected, they get results. When Republicans get their people elected, for too long, we've been getting and accepting excuses.
Yeah.
And this is something that it ultimately falls way back here to the grassroots, to us. If we accept the excuse, oh, the poor guy, he's trying. Your minority leader there of the state Senate there, he's trying. No, he's not. Well, he doesn't want to make him mad. Well, he's got to play within the, color inside the lines. He's got to try to reach across the aisle. No, he doesn't. What he's got to do is stand. Forget your Overton window. We're not going to follow you guys anywhere. Mm-hmm. We're going to say, this is right, that's wrong. Stand here for what's right. And if you don't, there's no reason to elect you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Chris, don't you think this is a result of just an elitist class? I mean, what I see when I see some of these bills in Illinois in particular, and this is even way worse at the federal or the national level, is like laws that are created for silly reasons. We had a law that I saw, it just off the top of my head, businesses in Illinois had to have a bottle filling station, at every location, and they had to have them in parks and all this. And I'm thinking, okay, what a waste of time and money for the taxpayer. But then I'm thinking, well, gee, I wonder if this particular politician who put forth this bill might know somebody who operates a company that, say, could.
That's a good point. We should be following the money now. In a perfect world, we follow the money. We find out that it's the guy's cousin that does this. Yeah. And at that point, take them both down and lock them up, because it's criminal. It's criminal for him to be embezzling your taxpayer dollars that way, and it's criminal for the other guy to be accepting the embezzled money. Okay, now That's in a perfect world. We haven't gotten there. The other thing that we need to understand is, and this is where, again, going back to the Overton window, this is where we've got to start identifying friend and foe, and forget if they put an R by their name. That does not give them a blanket of immunity. But there are two completely different versions of what the law is about. In a free society, the law is about stopping people from doing bad things, and we have a common moral underpinning for the society to understand what those bad things are. We don't want you doing bad things, and we're going to outlaw those things. And if you don't do those bad things, stealing, murdering, etc., we could go down the list. If you don't do those things, then you are free to do what you want with your time and your resources to pursue happiness. Remember the Declaration of Independence? So the law stops you from stepping over those lines. Now, in a despotic society, and again, as you said earlier, comes in by encroachment, it doesn't come in overnight. In a despotic society, the law becomes a force by which we make you do what we say are good things. Okay? I want you to help save the planet. So I'm going to make you jump through these hoops as you live in order to help save the planet. Now, are you really doing something bad by mowing a lawn? Not really. You're not hurting anybody, but we think that you're going to be better for the planet if you use an electric lawnmower. And we can even go into that whole electric thing. I don't want to do that right now, but you get my point.
Yeah, I get your point. And you make an interesting point here, if I may. You look at the Supreme Court justices on the left, and they say that the Constitution is a living Constitution. I think what people forget is that this Constitution is about. It was progressive in the sense that it was about protecting individual sovereignty, which, is with a check and balance system and that Bill of Rights. And what the left seems to want to do is what's good for everybody is what we should do. But that doesn't work. 51% democracy is just a tyranny of the majority. And then we don't get to adjudicate if these issues, that they're trying to force down our throats are actually going to work or not. We just have to trust the experts, so to speak.
Yep.
I think
that's part of the mantra.
I think that no, like this should be a slow moving,
Absolutely.
process. And an excess of legislation always leads to the erosion of individual rights. That's just
absolutely right. Now, some of that is necessary.
Absolutely.
And again, if we start from a solid moral basis, then we can make a determination. Should I keep people from driving at 80 miles an hour past an elementary school? Yeah, that might be a good thing because we don't want to get kids hurt. So we make a judgment. Well, how fast is safe or whatever. But I'd like to go back to something else that you said here about them referring to the Constitution as a living document. And the best statement on that I ever heard, I believe it was Dr. Thomas Sowell. It's pretty much been scrubbed from the internet because it nailed it. He said those that regard the Constitution or claim to regard it as a living document actually regard it as a dead document. Okay, and so this is why they use these kinds of things.
Right.
It was the original foundational contract with America, the Constitution. The federal government said if we're going to have any oversight over the freedom of the states and put any limits, boundaries on what they do whatsoever, we're going to do it according to a very specific document. Okay, it was the contract with America. And take any other contract. Go buy a house and you're going to pay a certain amount for mortgage, and then go tell the bank, a few months after you bought it that, hey, this contract that I signed, I was going to pay you, $2,000 a month in rent on this house or for my mortgage. It's a living document, so I think I'm only going to pay you, $500. Okay, what are they going to do? It's a living document? No, that's a bunch of garbage. And the fact that they can recite these mantras and get away with it again has always gone back to the fact that our side rolls over for it. We allow it. It is not a living document. If you don't uphold the Constitution, you're in breach of contract with America. And any so-called judge who is the ultimate supposed authority on what's constitutional is the Supreme Court. Any judge who has a track record of not upholding the Constitution has declared himself wholly and completely unfit to be on that bench.
Because they should be referees. They should not be. They should not be extra legislatures.
Right,
So
exactly.
A good example is the Second Amendment situation. And we have a assault weapons ban in Illinois, which is wholly unconstitutional.
Yep.
And I hear the argument from these leftists, who fancy them intellectuals, to say like, oh, it says militia and that was an era where they had muskets and blah blah blah. They couldn't have envisioned that any of this stuff. And what we
know better than the founders. Just trust us.
And what I would say is, like, the right to defend yourself is sacred.
And they don't want you to have that right, Paul. They do not want you to defend yourself.
I shouldn't have to forfeit that right and have the government subcontracted out to themselves. And furthermore, if you want a more contemporary example, look at what they're doing with just letting anybody and everybody into this country, murderers, mentally ill, terrorists, right? And then rewind a year and look what happened to Israel on October 7th, right?
That's a good way to portray it. Absolutely.
And then you're going to tell me that what the founders were thinking and that they didn't think this whole through, even though they were going off of thousands of years of Western civilizational code, and that should be your justification to say that you don't need this particular weapon. No, it's not your job to tell me what I need.
Absolutely right. As a matter of fact, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness does not say subject to the whims of those who want to dominate you.
Right.
Now, here's a question for our Republican legislators. And here's, again, even in Illinois, if people actually take a stand, what you can actually promote is those taking a stand, calling out those legislators and senators who don't take a stand, including your Senate minority leader. Mm-hmm. Okay, sir, is this a hill to die on? Because you weren't going to do the other one. Is this a hill to die? Well, we can't make that happen in Illinois. No, you can stand. You can stand and you can identify yourself as pro Second Amendment, not just today, but tomorrow and the next day. And the fact that those who don't stand with you, whether they call themselves Democrats or Republicans, those people are standing against the Constitution, and those people are a threat to freedom.
Right. So, Chris, I want to talk a little bit about your book. Again, I know we're here to talk about other things, and we talked about that the first time we talked to you, but I just want to remind the audience, Chris Adamo, and I'm sorry if we don't have a graphic of your book here, but if you
got right up here, I think you can see.
Yeah. Oh yeah, right behind him there. That's the cover of the book, Rules for Defeating Radicals. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate that.
There we go.
Rules for Defeating Radicals. So this was an answer to the book by Saul Alinsky. If people don't know who he was a radical leftist organizer in the 60s. Who advocated for Satan. Literally, it's in a YouTube clip and said he was on the side of Satan.
That was a dedication of his book, Rules for Radicals.
That's right. The dedication. That's right. Hillary Clinton wrote her master's thesis on him, and his tactics have basically, if you look at the George Floyd protests in 2020, like that was Saul Alinsky's tactics to a T. This is the left's way of getting political power through chaos and protest and intimidation. So,
and as they're doing that, they're climbing onto this phony moral high ground again, as we saw from that mayor. And the other side of it, this is where we have a say so. The other side of it is then they mock their opposition, and that's where your Senate minority leader says, "Oh, I don't want to die on that hill. I don't want to get made fun of.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to duck from that."
Right.
Okay, now who's in control? And every situation in which we respond defensively, we've just put the opposition in control.
Yeah. So I totally agree with you. And by the way, he's taken money from public unions as well, from union teachers unions and other unions as well.
Surprise.
So maybe that was motivating his not a hill to die on situation. But you could argue that was the single worst piece of legislation in Illinois' history, as far as eroding individual rights. So just give us give us a background, a quick background about the book, and maybe some of the answers you have to within the book, and what motivated you to write this book, and how we do challenge the more and more aggressive left in this day and age.
Well, for starters, I'm going to give you the short answer, which is what we do. Our most powerful weapon against the left is, again, the thing that they try the hardest to take from us, and that's our freedom of speech. Okay, you look at the Soviet Union. At their peak, they had 30,000 nuclear weapons pointed at the United States. We had 10,000 pointed towards them. What they feared more than every ICBM on American soil that might come at them, what they feared more was printing presses in the hands of their own people.
Right.
Okay, so they show you what they're afraid of. If you live on this fragile, phony construct of lies, you have to vigorously enforce it because it can't stand on its own. So your biggest enemy is the truth.
What did Lincoln say? I think it was a biblical quote: "A house built on sand cannot."
A house divided against itself cannot stand. Yeah. And so what do we have that we can and should be using against them? We have the power of the truth. The short answer, the short version of my book is we stay on message. Now, there's a whole lot more to it than that, because they have a million different tricks for getting us off message. And I hope you don't feel like I'm calling you out on this, but I'm just going to give you one and give you something to think about. Okay, what do we started with an admission years ago that we had illegal aliens invading the country.
Oh, right.
Okay, now they took that word and they morphed it. We had undocumented aliens.
Yeah.
Eventually we had undocumented immigrants.
Yeah, they're masters of language. You're right.
And then they had immigrant population. Then they have migrants.
That's a marketing tactic, isn't it?
And it works. Migrant means traveler.
Right.
So we've gone from a real description of these people who are foreign invaders, many of them hostile military-aged men, and now they're travelers. Okay. Now we end up using that word. What we've ended up doing is adopting their mantra, their worldview on the situation without even realizing. Now we're trying to say, well, these migrants, we shouldn't be doing this and that for these poor travelers. You're going to deny these poor travelers food and housing? No, I'm going to stop the invasion of illegal invaders.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So we've got to, and that's just one example of how they morph the language to where it puts them on their moral high ground. They're looking out for those poor travelers, and you're the mean white bigot that wants to send these people, off into oblivion or whatever. Every step of the way, every advertisement, practically every movie, every news report, every fake news report you hear, it's very specifically tailored to present the leftist side of the message as the proper side. Even just look at the term fact checkers, okay? They don't say leftist propagandists because that wouldn't look quite so good. So they're fact checkers.
Yeah.
They're not going to give you their opinion. They're just going to give you the facts.
Right.
And so when you get fact checked, it was your opinion against their facts. Okay. Now, if we look at the actual situation, their so-called facts are invariably a bunch of leftist propaganda, which means they're a bunch of leftist lies. And yet they're not going to say, well, this is our side or our opinion. This is fact checking. Every step of the way, they have a million tricks to put themselves in the position to claim to be on that moral high ground, the arbiters of what's true and right. And as you mentioned before with the Overton window, we, out of cowardice, we don't want to come out and say, I don't want to sound too extreme. I'll try and sound congenial to some of this. I'll try and sound like I'm reasonable. I want to end the rancor. Let's all find middle ground and move forward, whatever the heck that means. It's walking towards a cliff.
So we're beyond that point, right, Chris? Because, one point I would make is their language is expiring. If everybody's a bigot and racist who disagrees with, or if you disagree with me, or how should I put this?
If you disagree with me, you're a bigot, you're a homophobe, et cetera, et cetera.
If everybody's a bigot, racist, homophobe, then nobody's a bigot, racist, homophobe, right? You just call everything that you're removing.
Well, you understand that. The problem is that the politician that doesn't want to die on that hill is going to tap dance for these people. Mm-hmm. Okay, now, in particular in this case, what we have to deal with, you and I, And I, as I wrote my book, I came to the realization, I'm glad you approached it that way. It's like, okay, we've got something else going on here. I realized I had to add a chapter in there. And it was chapter 7, 10 chapter book. It was chapter 7. I thought, you know what? We think we need to fight the Democrats. We need to fight the leftists in the political establishment. And some of them put an R by their name.
That's right.
And so chapter 7 is entirely devoted to rhinos, and I call them the essential Alinsky fifth column. Because while we're fighting the left, you and I are looking at these people in front of us, you know, the AOC crowd and the Barack Obama crowd. We look at them, and here's these rhinos saying, "Oh, come on, guys, we don't want to be too partisan. We don't want to stir up anger and rancor and stuff like that." And what they're doing is they're undercutting us from behind.
Absolutely.
And so the single biggest challenge that we face as conservatives is to get the Republican Party to start being what it says it's going to be. And the number one way to do that is to get rid of the people who actually don't uphold that.
Stick to your principles. Like I swear, the biggest,
just that simple.
The biggest issue that I have, I have more of an issue with the fact that there's people that purport to represent a constituency who has specific value set that that they want represented politically, and then they don't represent those people's values. I mean, that's my issue. I have, if we're looking at it from an agnostic viewpoint of what the issues, what the policies are, it's the fact that you purport to represent somebody, but you don't actually represent them. That's the issue. That's phony. You're lying.
You're a fraud. You're absolutely.
Fraud.
You're a traitor.
But furthermore, what Terry and I ran into was, you know, I think these people, a lot of them think that they're doing the right thing, right?
You know what? That's irrelevant. I'll be honest with you.
I agree with you. And I agree with you. And the thing that I would wish to impress upon them is this is a serious game. You sit there and you say, well, we got to play within the rules of the game that is created.
Oh, they'll always tell us that.
It's like I'm not naive. I understand how the game is being played and that there's a lot of money involved and so forth. In the meantime, we're actually losing our freedoms, our rights.
And they're not fighting for it.
You cannot play that same game anymore.
Let me give you the background on this. We have 3 types of rhinos. Okay. And this, we need to understand. This is why I went into this chapter, and I describe it when in the opening of this chapter. I say this is the most important chapter in the book, because there's a reason why in a time of war you find a spy behind your lines that he's executed. He's more dangerous than the people across the field that you're looking at, because he's behind you and you think he's your ally, and he's going to get you from behind. Okay.
Right.
So if we don't understand what has gone wrong in the Republican Party and deal with it very sternly, we are guaranteeing our loss.
Right.
Okay.
We can't fight communists if we can't get our own party straight.
Exactly. Now let's take one of the Republican Party mantras that they've used for years and gotten away with, and let's look at this. They say the purpose of a political party is to get its people elected. Okay. And I've heard major conservative voices say that. That's just conventional wisdom. That's a bald-faced lie.
Not in America.
The purpose. What's that?
Not in America. It shouldn't be that. That's not the definition, in my opinion.
I've heard good conservatives say that because they've heard it and they just didn't think about it. It's kind of like, that the Constitution's a living document. People don't think about it. The purpose of a political party is for like-minded people to use the strength of numbers to advance a set of ideas.
A set of ideas, right? Not
a party
just the party.
Yeah, and that's what defines a party. Now, when the party morphs from that, and they infiltrate the opportunists, the corrupt scammers, they infiltrate, and when the party morphs from that to where it's looking out for getting its own people elected, it's become ingrown, and it's a state of decay. Now, the Democrats can get away with this because their whole moral base is fetid and rotten, and so they can operate on this basis. The Republican Party was started on a moral issue of slavery, and it's operated on the basis of advancing what is right for the country. And when they go to this we don't really care what the person stands for. If he puts an R by his name, we got to stand with him. That's how you end up with your Mitt Romneys, your John McCains, and your Liz Cheneys.
Right.
Okay. Now there's three kinds of rhinos. You have the moral cowards. These are the ones that they may know what's right, but they don't have the backbone to do it. Okay. You have the clueless ones that don't know what right and wrong. And then you have your leftist infiltrators. Okay, so let's take these in order. The leftist infiltrators, once you spot them and you realize this is who they are, you've got to get rid of them immediately.
Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger.
Perfect examples, yeah. Okay, the moral cowards, if you can replace them with somebody who has a spine, you do it. The other thing to do is you make them understand that they've got more to be afraid of from you than from the left. Okay, at that point, a lot of them will stand with you. Okay. And then the clueless ones you may have to educate. Now, again, it's almost inexcusable that somebody could get into these positions and be clueless, and yet sometimes you run into those. If you educate them and they start operating right, I've seen it happen. Okay, we work with those people. But the last thing that you do is work within the system as it is and accept it as it is, because at that point you've become part of the establishment.
Yeah, you're inert. You know,
inert. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You're. I mean, there's no properties to you. You don't have any qualities. You can't affect change.
And a lot of them are happy to operate on that basis. I think even before Mitch McConnell got, he's suffering from whatever it is Biden's suffering from, dementia, late stage dementia. Even before that, he was happy to be the Senate minority leader. He liked it better as a minority leader than the majority leader because he didn't have to do anything.
Yeah, he was a good game player. I mean, like, again, and that's like, I get game theory, and I'm well aware, but it's just like, we're in the meantime we're losing our freedoms. But hey, listen, Chris, we're so we're gonna have to wrap up here. I wanted to ask you. And I know you're speaking at our event on October 17th. We're
looking forward to it very much.
Really looking forward to meeting you in person and having you come speak with some other great patriots. And I guess given our conversation about rhinos and communists, could you give us a good closing statement on your vision for retaining freedom in the United States of America?
I will say that there have been major despotisms throughout history. I describe in my book the fact that the Alinsky strategy will ultimately fail because no cancer can ever outlive its host. Okay, the window is closing on freedom in America, maybe for generations, if we don't do something about it. We can't play by the rules that the opposition has given us and try to find common ground with them and be perceived as reasonable by them without ultimately surrendering. Okay, right. The fact that they're doing what they can, the fact that they're having meltdowns daily over things that Elon Musk is saying and things like that, and Donald Trump is saying, prove to me that they are still scared to death, that enough of a spark of truth will catch fire among the American people, and that we won't accept their lies and their cheating. Okay, and if we win on November 5th, God help us if we don't. If we win on November 5th, we've got to realize that what that is that's like going up on the beaches of Normandy and establishing a beachhead. I agree with you. Not the end of the war.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, Chris, it was a pleasure speaking with you again. Really enjoy your book. And for everybody, you can get it. Chris, where can you get your book again? Amazon, I'm guessing. Rules for Defeating
unfortunately,
Radicals.
It's at Amazon. It's that's what I got to do at the moment. I've approached Mike Lindell to get him to publish it. I haven't heard a response back, but yeah.
Okay. We got the Amazon link right in there for you. But again, hey, I hear you about Amazon, but hey,
sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, we also want to sell some of your books because it's a great book. It's
needed by the people nowadays. It's needed.
Right. I agree. I think it's a great treatise on how to combat some of these aggressive leftist tactics. But hey, Chris, again, love talking to you. Appreciate your perspective and really looking forward to seeing you next Thursday, October 17th, and hearing what you have to say to the other Patriots in the room.
We
Thanks.
will look forward to that. God bless you, Paul. Take care.
You too, Chris. Thanks again. All right. Hey, Jason, can we pull up the webs? There we go. Okay, Jason's way ahead of me. I think there's a link to get tickets as soon as you, and that's fightingbehindennemylines.com. Fightingbehindennemylines.com. There we have a link to get the yeah, that's all right. There's a pop-up that once you go to navigate to our website, you get tickets right there. October 17th, 2024, 6 p.m. Lincoln Trump dinner at Chuck's. Is it Chuck's Barbecue? I forgot what the name. Chuck's Southern. Yeah, help me out. Southern Comfort Cafe. Been there. Great food. Good times. Looking forward to hearing some awesome speakers, and including somebody who's 1 degree away from President Trump, so in town of Gertz. And yeah, that's about buy some pillows, Bell 1776, from our guy, Mike Lindell, who's doing a lot of yeoman's work on the election integrity front. There we go. Bell 1776. Pop that promo code in there. There's a spot for it on the website. I'm telling you, I'm not just saying it. I've had 2 My Pillows for like 5 years. I don't know what he puts in those things, but I enjoy them. They're very comfortable. Jason likes the feel of the terry cloth robe against his supple naked body. That's what he told me. I've never seen it myself. I'm just relaying that information from a third party. So Bell 1776, use the promo code, buy some pillows. If not for us, just for Mike Lindell and his cause. He's got a great product, and he's doing a lot of work trying to secure our elections. All right, well, I believe that's all we have for today. Thank you for joining us, and hope to see a bunch of you next Thursday, October 17th at Chuck's Southern Comfort Cafe for the Lincoln Trump dinner. See you there. And see you on the podcast in a couple of weeks. Take care, everybody.